All right. So you probably heard about this AI Act, right? Everyone's talking about it.
Right.
And you want to know what the real deal is.
Right.
Not just the robot uprising headlines.
Yeah.
But like what it actually means.
The actual implications, yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we went through, I mean, we really dug into expert discussions, ISO standard breakdowns. We went through it all.
The whole 9 yards.
And I got to tell you, the reality,
it's fascinating.
way more interesting.
How fast this is changing the landscape of technology.
Any sci-fi movie I know.
Yeah.
Like, for example, take how the AI Act classifies AI systems. It's all about their potential impact, right? So your spam filter, that's not held to the same standard as like an AI that's diagnosing medical conditions.
Precisely, yeah. I mean, if you have a doctor using AI to like analyze a biopsy, the consequences are far greater than an algorithm that's just suggesting what you buy next on Amazon, for instance. And that's why the Act is really focused on these high-impact sectors, things like healthcare, hiring.
Yeah, you don't want like hiring decisions to be made by some flawed algorithm.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the key things that this is trying to prevent, right? Is having these sort of really powerful tools being used, but being used irresponsibly.
Right, and this isn't just an EU thing.
And that's the thing, right? It has this global reach.
Yeah.
So even if you're a company and you're operating outside of the EU, if your technology, if your AI interacts with the EU market or citizens, it still applies.
Wow.
It still applies.
So, okay, I'm a developer in, I don't know, Tokyo.
Sure.
And I create some facial recognition software.
Right.
But it ends up being used by like a security firm in Germany.
They have to comply.
Wow.
They would have to comply with the EU's regulations.
Wow, so it's really setting a global standard.
It is. It's forcing these, tech giants worldwide to really rethink their approach to AI and making sure that these ethical considerations are taken into account, really from day one.
Yeah.
From the outset.
It's like setting the bar.
It is. It is setting the bar.
It's like setting the bar.
It is setting the bar. And it's not all like doom and gloom, right? Like it's not just, hey, you can't do this, you can't do that.
Right.
There's this whole other side to the AI Act, which is promoting responsible AI innovation.
Right.
And they do this through things like regulatory sandboxes.
Okay, so not a literal sandbox. I was imagining like
not a literal sandbox.
Little AI programs playing nicely together.
Right. No. But I love the imagery.
But what is it?
So imagine it's basically a controlled environment where companies, especially startups, can go and they can test their AI systems without fear of immediate penalty, right?
Oh, okay.
So it allows them to sort of test in the real world with certain safeguards in place.
So they can see how their AI would function in
the
real world, in a sort of controlled environment before they just release it on all of us.
I like that, yeah.
Right? It's like, let's try to work out the kinks here before we, potentially have unintended consequences.
Yeah, that makes sense.
So that's one way they're doing it. The Act also leans heavily on existing ISO standards.
Okay.
Things like, you've probably heard these numbers before, 42001, 23894.
Yeah, they get thrown around a lot.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
And these are basically like benchmarks.
So like a blueprint for ethical AI.
Yeah, you could think of it that way. Think of them as best practices.
Okay.
They're not mandatory.
Okay.
But adhering to these standards can demonstrate a company's commitment, right?
To doing it the right way.
To doing it the right way.
Yeah.
And that goes a long way in terms of compliance.
So it's kind of like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's beneficial to get on board with this stuff early on.
Yeah.
It's important to remember, though,
Yeah.
that this act, it's not like a light switch,
Yeah.
right? It's not implemented overnight.
Right. Yeah.
There are different deadlines
Exactly.
set for various requirements. They give companies time to adapt.
Which makes sense.
Wow.
Since this stuff is changing so quickly.
Constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So you got to have a phased approach.
Right.
But there's another layer to this, and this is where it gets really interesting, I think, is the whole question of liability.
Yeah. Yeah. This was a big one in the discussions that we looked at.
Yeah, and this is where this AI liability directive comes into play.
Which is, okay, can you break this down? Because this is like a whole other thing.
It's a whole other thing. So it's still in development.
Okay.
But essentially, this directive aims to establish clear guidelines for who's liable
Okay.
when AI systems cause harm.
Okay. So let's say I'm a company.
Sure.
And I'm using AI to, I don't know, predict market trends.
Right.
And it makes a mistake.
Okay.
And I lose tons of money.
Who's responsible?
That's the million-dollar question.
Right.
And this is where it gets really interesting, is they're talking about like a shift in the burden of proof.
Okay.
Right? So instead of me, the injured party, having to prove that your AI messed up, you might have to prove that it didn't.
Oh, wow.
So it really puts the onus on the developers.
So, like, keep good records and all that?
Documentation, yeah, transparency, testing protocols.
So it's not even enough to build a functional AI.
Right.
You have to be able to prove that you did it responsibly.
You got to be able to show your work.
Wow.
Right. And this is huge because it's not just about avoiding legal trouble.
Right.
This is about establishing trust in this technology.
It's like the whole new world for AI, right?
It really is.
Like, do you think other countries are going to start doing this?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, the EU is oftentimes like a trendsetter when it comes to this kind of stuff.
Right, right.
And we're already seeing other countries kind of taking notice, and drawing inspiration from this framework.
So this could be like the beginning of like a global shift.
I think so.
To like more responsible AI.
Yeah, absolutely. And what's important to remember too is like this isn't just on governments and corporations, right?
Right.
Like we have a role to play in this too as individuals.
But like what can we even do? You know what I mean? Like it feels so big.
Yeah, no, it's a massive issue.
It's huge.
But I think a lot of it just starts with awareness.
Okay.
Right? Like staying informed, staying engaged.
Okay.
The more we understand these technologies, the regulations surrounding them,
right,
the better equipped we are to demand ethical development, right?
So do your research.
Exactly.
Ask questions.
Don't be afraid to like speak up.
Yeah, we're not just passive bystanders in this whole, technological revolution.
Yeah.
Like we actually have the power to shape the future of this stuff.
Wow. No, that's a good point. That's a really good point.
So yeah, get involved. This has been really insightful. This is good stuff.
It's a lot. There's a lot there.
There is a lot there.
But it's exciting stuff.
It's really interesting though. And it's good to know.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's changing all the time.
All the time, constantly evolving.
So we have to kind of stay on top of it.
Exactly.
But for everyone listening, we've only just scratched the surface here.
That's the tip of the iceberg.
There's so much more.
Oh, yeah.
But this is like a really good starting point, I think.
Absolutely. A really good foundation to build on.
So yeah, if you're interested in this, go do some more digging because
it's out there.
There's a lot to learn.
Yeah, keep asking questions. And together, I think we can ensure that AI is used to benefit everybody.
Okay, on that note, I think that's a wrap on this deep dive of the AI Act.
I agree.
We'll catch you guys in the next one.